Welcome to another edition of the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less Coaches Show with the head coach, Doug Wojcik, brought to you by GEICO, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car insurance. Call GEICO at 1-800-947-AUTO. That's 1-800-947-AUTO or visit geico.com. And we welcome you on the court here inside TD Arena. One of these days I'm going to let you read that just to kind of switch it up. With Coach Wojcik, I'm Jeff McCarriger. Guys coming off a great win on the road.
We're laughing at you.
In Spartanburg, I know. They're laughing at me as I'm reading it. Good win the other night, 79-50. Congratulations. Back-to-back wins now for you guys. Solid wins over the Citadel and over Wofford.
Well, we're somewhat back on track in the sense that we won 6 straight on the road. Yeah. You lose 2 on the road, which is not the end of the world, but when you win 6 straight and then you lose 2, you kind of say, oh, we got to get back on track. And kids wanted to wear the black uniforms, change it up a little bit, and won our first game against a rival, which is a good time to maybe break out the black uniforms. They really had fun with them and played really well.
Well, speaking of breaking out, you guys break out the black uniforms, and Trent Wiedemann, you talk about a breakout game, 17 points, a great game for him, the most points he's had since the first game of the year against Towson.
Yeah, I mean, he played 23 minutes. He's been averaging about 21 minutes a game over the last 4 games. So for every day a kid is out, it probably takes 2 days to get back in it. And so it's been a process for him. I know at times frustrating, as is expected when you're an athlete and you're hurt. And you have credentials. He has credentials. It's difficult, but he's done a great job, played well, scored it inside, hit the jump shot, which was fantastic. Yeah. Really happy for him and certainly for our team, because obviously as we go forward and if we can stay healthy, that's just going to help us out as we head into February.
How healthy is he right now as far as with his ankles?
I think he's healthy. I think I'm not a doctor. I couldn't tell you. But every game's different, everyone judges the game on scoring, You sit here and did Andrew Lawrence have a bad game because he didn't score? He had 6 assists and 0 turnovers. So I'd say he's healthy.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Andrew Lawrence, because you're right. In the scoring, when you look at the stat sheets, Trent Wiedemann, obviously, Anthony Stitt had a good game, but Andrew Lawrence obviously didn't score 21 points or 18, 17 points like we're accustomed to, but 6 assists. I was looking back, watching some of the tape of the game. He did a really good job, I thought, looking for his teammates.
He really did. He's really driven the ball and kicked it out for shots over the last 2 games. He had a great play against Citadel that way for Anthony Stitt on the right wing. But I'll throw Willis Hall and Ajay Baru in that category. You have a team that can go on the road and score 79 points on the road, and 3 starters. I think it's 6, 6, and 5 points between the 3 of them. So what's that? 17 points. Yeah. Normally that's high 20s. So it just talks about our depth a little bit more than anything else. And Andrew has really done a good job running the team. But at times I want him to shoot a little bit more. He gets into that point guard mode, and it's like, look, man, shoot the basketball. I tried to run a few things late for him, and Stitt was hot. He said, no, running for Stitt. I'm like, I want him to get his average. I mean, he deserves that. He's an all-league player. But across the board, it says more about our team that we could score 79, and 3 starters really don't get their average.
Well, Anthony Stitt, you mentioned him a couple times. He has 11 points, 3 3-pointers. Great to see him back. You knew it was just going to be a matter of time before he got back into it.
Today's his birthday today, too.
That's right.
So he's 20 years old, and he's really bounced back great, did a great job more than anything else. Again, you continue to judge the game based on offense, right. But he held Carl Cochran to 4 points. He's 2 for 16 from the floor. I really judge Anthony Stitt's game based on overall assists, turnovers, defense, and certainly his offense. But he did a great job. Nice to see him shoot the ball and hit some step-in jump shots. But, boy, he did a phenomenal job on the reigning freshman of the year in the conference.
So you got to let me get to my next point.
Well, I'm just saying, everyone judges the game based on offense, and there's 50 possessions on defense as well.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, though, on the radio broadcast after the game, because that's something you guys have done a good job on, and that's what I was going to bring up. Matt Van Soyk, You guys did a good job against the Citadel with him, and the same thing with Carl Cochran.
You know what I need to do is we need to get Coach Kress as on my show, because he and I would just really kind of get into the.
He did a good job on TV, didn't he?
You know, we would bond, and you're bringing up the. But no,
I was a little worried.
Just giving you a hard time.
When I saw how good he did in the post-game show, I was like, oh, I'm getting worried.
Well, Wofford's not a great offensive team, but they were averaging 59 a game in the conference stats. And at this stage of the season, I just care about conference stats, because that's who we are, because we're playing the same teams. And so they were averaging 59, and here in another game we hold a team under their scoring average at home. So just a good team effort defensively.
Let me ask you kind of a cheesy radio guy question now. I mean, do you feel like, but I feel like I got to ask you, do you feel like the team is coming together? Because everyone talks about how you need to be playing your best basketball towards the end of the season. I mean, do you feel like the team is starting to come together?
I'd love to throw that back at you and say, don't you think so?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. It's a great team effort the other day.
Yeah.
Positive assist to turnover ratio over the last 3 or 4 games. Particularly, I mean, even going back to the Davidson game, really good basketball game. Just didn't win it. So yes, and then we continue to do a good job on the glass, and you have a guy like Theo Johnson come off the bench and score 12 in a career high. You got bench scoring there with him and Trent. So, yeah, actually, we are playing our best basketball.
Yeah, a couple more stats. You talk about bench scoring. I guess I don't see it here off the top of my head, but bench scoring I know was big for you guys. We've talked about this before. When Matt Sundberg and Norrie Johnston are hitting shots for you, takes pressure off of an Andrew Lawrence, takes pressure off an Anthony Stitt, and a whole new dimension for the basketball team.
Yeah, I think Matt, that's a good point. I think Matt is in a good place right now.
Yeah.
He's really kind of the last few games gone between playing the 3 and the 4. We've sort of found the groove for him there a little bit. And then I think Norrie's really trying. I still think that Norrie could probably, hopefully, could get it going even more, making shots. But I think he's really, really trying. And that's all I can ask for is the effort, attention span, and we're getting it from everybody.
One more stat thing for you. We always like looking at the stats together after the game, but the assist to turnover ratio, again, positive for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we're sharing the basketball, which shows that we are playing our best basketball. We made the extra pass. Theo made an extra pass for a 3.
Yep.
Anthony Thomas made an extra pass for a 3. So in that sense, Matt Sundberg makes an extra pass for a 3. I think our spacing's been really, really good. And what helps with that is certainly having that second presence inside besides Ajay, with having Trent on that low block, because the spacing is pretty good, because teams have to say, what are we going to do with him down there? We're going to dig onto him, or we're going to double him. And that's what they're doing to Ajay, and that's what they're going to start doing to Trent. And it just opens up driving lanes and shooting opportunities for us.
Again, a big win for the College of Charleston on the road against Wofford, 79-50. Trent Wiedemann with a big game, and of course, more importantly, the guys overall now 14 wins on the season, so 14-7. We'll take a break. When we come back, 2 big home games coming up this week against Appalachian State and UNC Greensboro. We'll also talk a little recruiting when we come back here on the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less podcast with head coach Doug Wojcik.
Look, I'm all for modern conveniences. But ask yourself, do you really need a blender with 23 buttons just to chop an onion? At GEICO, we think life should be simpler. So we make buttons just to chop an onion. At GEICO, we think life should be simpler. So we make it super simple to save on car insurance. Just one click and you could be on your way to saving hundreds. Come on, people. Life doesn't have to be that complicated.
GEICO. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
And welcome back to the 15 Minutes or Less GEICO podcast with the head coach Doug Wojcik. I'm Jeff McCarriger. Thanks for tuning in again this week here on CFCsports.com. Limited time as always, but Coach, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about recruiting as we kind of go off track a little bit. And recruiting is kind of a confusing situation for everybody. When you can recruit, when you can't recruit. I know you've got Joe Cheeley and Terrence O'Donohue coming in, but when is the recruiting period? When does it start again for you guys, and what do you look for physically and mentally in a player?
Well, right now we're allowed to go evaluate. So we can go to high school games, practices, and all of that, and we've been doing that throughout the year. I do tend to like my assistants at practice, because the most important thing to me is my team and the status of my team and what our state of mind is. But in the spring here, we'll be able to go to AAU events 2 weekends. So the rules have changed a lot. One of the rule changes right now is, for instance, if there's a junior out there 2014 young man, we could have that person in on an official visit right now. And that rule change started January 1st.
Okay.
But we really haven't done that. I think it's a little too early for who we are. If you're North Carolina or you're Kansas and you want to get it done and you want to bring a kid in for a home game and you're playing Duke at home and you're North Carolina, that's totally understandable.
Right.
But you know, when you're playing games, it's really hard to have an official visit because you're not spending as much time with the prospect because you're worried about the game. So we'll start early, particularly with local kids, state kids. I mean, if we can get in on them, that's where I think where our bread and butter is as far as recruiting early. But if it's a kid from Texas or New Jersey or Ohio or something like that, it's really hard to recruit a kid who's a freshman or sophomore when you're a mid-major school.
Right.
You know, I found my best prospects at Tulsa a lot of times in the late signing period, in the spring of their senior year. Ben Uzo, who's third in the scoring all-time at Tulsa. Jerome Jordan, who was in the NBA, got drafted in the second round. So it all depends, and it depends on your school and your situation.
Now, who are some of the biggest recruits you think you've ever been involved with, a chance to follow? I guess we can start at Tulsa when you were the head coach there, but who are some of the biggest recruits you've ever had?
Well, I mean, I'd start as an assistant. Something relative to this state would be Raymond Felton.
Oh, sure,
I
yeah.
recruited Raymond Felton out of Latta to North Carolina. He's the state all-time leading scorer, or at least he was. Sean May was in that class. Rashad McCants was in that class.
Pretty good class.
Yeah. At Notre Dame, we had a kid named Chris Thomas, who was a McDonald's All-American from Indianapolis. We got to go to Notre Dame. At Michigan State, certainly involved with, I'm trying to think, Maurice Sager, Brandon Cotton, those kind of kids. Mm-hmm. And then at Tulsa, I mean, names at the mid-major level, you're not going to get the rating and ranking.
Right.
I think it's irrelevant. I mean, beyond the top 25 players in the country and whose ranking is correct, they're all fighting to be a professional athlete. They're all fighting to be an NBA player or a player that goes to Europe and plays. So, you know, my best players at Tulsa were Ben Uzo, who had a great career. Jerome Jordan had a great career. And then there's a current freshman there right now. They'll probably be freshman of the year in the Conference USA, a kid named James Woodard, who was committed to us. So it's just the eyes of the beholder. You know, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Character is really big for me, athleticism, length, basketball IQ, and then skill set. What kind of home they come from, what kind of person are they? That player is an employee. So same kind of research that a company would do on an employee, we're going to try to do on a 17, 18-year-old high school kid. Yeah. It's a little harder to do. How
challenging are the rules as far as there's so many ways to communicate right now? I know I follow Joe Chile on Twitter. So between Twitter and Facebook and all the other social media, how difficult does that make it for coaches now?
Well, it's not. It's actually easier. You're allowed to text kids, and you're
I guess
allowed
I mean
to
as
call.
far as rules and regulations go.
Well, I've dealt with the rules for 23 years, so I mean,
Yeah.
once you know the rules and you know how to navigate within the rules, then it's part of your daily life. So it's actually easier now, and that's what the NCAA is trying to do, is to make it easier so they have more access, so you get to know the kids, because whatever the kid is or whatever kind of environment he comes from, we inherit that.
Yeah. We
inherit that, and so the rules allow us to communicate better, and you know, it's I think you got to be alert to what's important to you. Joe Chile comes from a great home. He's going to be a great leader for us. Terrence O'Donoghue moved away from home and then moved back. He's been away from home. I think that'll help him be a better college freshman than a kid that's just been at home the whole time and trying to move away and then adjust.
Coach, I got to wrap things up here quickly, about 20, 30 seconds, but this week, App State and then UNCG, so chance to get a couple games at home here.
Two high-scoring teams.
Yeah.
So we got to do a good job defensively, and they've had their moments. Dangerous teams. Greensboro was picked first in some polls in the North Division. So two home games. There are two next games, so we've got to be ready.
Congratulations, back-to-back wins against the Citadel and the Wofford. And Wofford, we'll talk to you again this week.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, that's Coach Doug Wojcik. I'm Jeff McCarriger. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week right here on the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less podcast here on CFCSports.com.